Well, let me introduce Kassy first, and then we're going to play the F is for feminist, okay? Kassy Dillon is the founder of the website Lone Conservative and has contributed to the Wall Street Journal, Campus Reform, and The Hill. She is a staff writer here at the Daily Wire, which is, one of the many reasons why we have her on today is we want to work with people who still work here. And so Kassy, I'm going to talk to you as an official woman. I'm going to talk to you about feminism. But first, I want to play my video from the Lefties Dictionary. I want to replay it in case people missed it. F is for feminism. F. F is for feminism. Feminism is a movement to end the unfair treatment of women by having women complain about every little thing until you just can't stand them. Before feminism, women were forced to stay at home, shaping the souls of a new generation until their children rose up and called them blessed. They weren't allowed to do important stuff like running the Amalgamated Widget Company while underpaying poor minority women to stay at home and shape the souls of a new generation, after the poor minority women had dropped their own children off at unclean, overcrowded daycare centers. Conversely, before feminism, men got all the breaks and were allowed to do cool stuff like work for a living and try not to sleep around, even though they really wanted to. Today, though, because of feminism, women have many rights they never had before. They have the right to miss the experience of raising their children by working 8 hours a day for a man who doesn't care about them before going home to ruin their children's lives by spoiling them because they feel so guilty about not having been there all day. They have the right to enjoy meaningless sex, just like men do, and then get incredibly depressed and feel as if they'd been used and treated like a piece of meat because they were used and treated like a piece of meat by men who enjoy meaningless sex much more than women do. They have the right to daydream that a man will come and rescue them and take care of them, and then feel guilty about it because feminism told them they're not supposed to daydream that, but they do anyway. And they have the right to blame their problems on men until no man on earth would want to talk to them, and they're forced to spend the best years alone pretending that's okay when it's really not. But they're not allowed to say so. Before feminism arose in the 1970s, according to a recent not made up study, women judged themselves to be happier than men. Since the advent of feminism, women's happiness and satisfaction have declined until now men report themselves to be happier. When asked why they were less happy after feminism than before, women said, "Shut up, I don't want to talk about it, just leave me alone." Then they ran away, sobbing uncontrollably. F is for feminism. I'm Andrew Klavan with the Lefties Dictionary. Kassy, let me begin by apologizing for subjecting you to that hate-filled diatribe.
I'm very triggered.
You look triggered. I can see that. But you have had your run-ins with feminism. I mean, you haven't always been the best friend feminism has. Isn't that fair to say?
Well, I went to an all-women's college, so I had the run-in with all the feminists, different sides, intersectionalists, the people who are just second wavers, who's probably just me, and then certainly some people who wanted to push that into other people who just hated men. So I've run into it all. I had it on my very first day in college. I went to our orientation, which is where they indoctrinate you first in college, and they put a girl on stage, and she had her hair in a ponytail, and they cut off her ponytail in front of everyone. And people were applauding and shouting and screaming down at the patriarchy. It was very disturbing. I was like, where am I going to college? What am I getting myself into?
Why? What did patriarchy have to do with her ponytail?
Well, we actually have this thing called the moho chop. So I went to Mount Holyoke, so moho is short for that, and they call it the moho chop, which is when you cut off all your hair and look like a boy. I kept my long hair. I think I might have the longest hair in that college, or I did. But yeah, it's kind of like a rite of passage to cut your hair off at that school.
Wow. Okay, so now explain to me the difference between first, second. How many waves of feminism are there now?
I think we might be going into our fourth wave.
Okay.
But I'm going to say there's 3 for simplicity, but I think there's a 4th one developing.
Okay, so explain the differences to me.
Sure. So first wave is right to vote. Second wave is to go into the workforce. And as your video says, to not stay at home with your children necessarily.
Okay.
And then third wave is kind of the intersectionality and also the hatred of men. So there's 2 different aspects to it, which is fourth wave is kind of more intersectionality. But I'm going to lump fourth and third together because they're very similar and they kind of are overlapping still. So.
Okay. Now, I'll get back to my video in a minute. But as you go to an all-women's college, you see this happening. What effect does it have on the actual women who are doing this?
Well, they're very unhappy. They don't really know what they're doing there. So at Mount Holyoke, we have a lot of women who actually go there and then explore their sexuality and meet other women and then leave and then marry men. So it's kind of like they're having fun in college and doing this rebellious nature. For instance, one of my guy friends went to one of the parties and it was all women. He was one of the only guys, and he took a video right after the election where he just screamed, "I hate men," and followed after this video, everyone starts cheering. It's kind of freaking me out when you see these things because they honestly do hate men. It's really scary.
And does this come from like personal experience? Have these girls, I guess they are in college, do they have personal experiences that make them hate men, or are they just told that they hate men because the world is an evil patriarchy?
Well, they want to join the sisterhood, and in order to join the sisterhood, you have to hate men. Men don't necessarily have to have done something bad to you. You see in Parents Weekend that they show up with their fathers, and they're very nice to their fathers. But when it comes to men at the neighboring schools, we have to hate them. We have to talk bad about them because that's the only way you can prop yourself up as a woman nowadays. With third wave feminism is by hating men instead of propping up each other.
Wow. Okay. So let's talk about this video, because I mean, here's the thing. I want everybody to do whatever he or she wants. I truly do. I mean, I want you to have your best life. I want everybody to have his or her best life that they want. Where do I go wrong in this video? Why should I be triggered?
Well, I think your video is very humorous, and it does a really good job talking about second wave feminism. But like you said in the video, women are unhappy. And I think you need to go a little bit further and explain that because they're unhappy, which I do think that being in the workforce could make you unhappy. There's a lot of stress there. But I do believe in individualism, and if a woman wants to work, go ahead.
Of course.
But we shouldn't be taking down housewives, which third wave feminism does. How dare you stay at home with your children? You're not adding to this society. You're being lazy, which is what you hear from these feminists towards housewives. And I think the major problem is because they're unhappy, they're blaming it on men instead of blaming on them for not making career choices that would make them happy or having children. So I think the problem is they just need to stop blaming it on men and realize they're unhappy and try changing it. But obviously, I think women should be in the workforce. I mean, I'm working here with you now.
Right. But then let me ask you, I don't want to get too personal, but I mean, when you look at what your best life looks like, do you want to have children? Let me ask that first. I mean, is that something that you want in your future?
Absolutely. I come from a really small family, so I want to have a big family. I want to have like 6 children.
Wow.
And luckily in my career, I can take a few months off and raise the children because I used to work in a daycare, and I see the problem with infants who are away from their mothers at a really young age. I had 4-week-olds that I was taking care of that saw me and the other teachers as their mother more than their actual mothers. And I think that's a problem. But I definitely want to have a lot of children, and I plan on working as well, possibly, but definitely not right when I have the child.
I mean, first of all, I'm delighted to hear a conservative woman say she wants to have 6 children. That is, I want us to reproduce as much as possible. Yeah. So now you have. I mean, 6 children's a lot of children. But even 2 children is a lot of children. 1 child is a lot of children. Is there any sense in which I look at little children and I think that kid for at least the first 3 years of life needs a mom.
Yeah.
And now that makes me obviously a patriarchal oppressor. Am I wrong?
Well, I think that a lot of people nowadays are using the grandparents as being the caregivers, which I think is a lot better than having a daycare or even a nanny. So I think that's really important to have. So if you are in a family where you have that option, I think that's really important. But I do see the point of having a child with their mother at a really young age. That's why I think it's so important that millennials prefer working from home, which is what a lot of us do. Even at the Daily Wire, we have a lot of people who work from home.
Sure,
So I think there has to be a balance. And obviously, there isn't a blanket solution to any of it.
I mean, the other aspect of this is for yourself. Do you want to miss, do you want to miss your child's first steps? Do you want to not be there when those things happen? I mean, isn't that part of being a mother? I'm asking you. I'm not. You don't have to give me the answer I want. I just want to know.
Well, as a 22-year-old, it's I do think about having children, but obviously I'm still young and not quite at that part in my life yet. But obviously, I definitely want to be there for those things with my future children. But then I think that when my children grow up and they can be like, wow, my mommy is on Andrew Klavan's show. How cool is that? You want to continue doing those things as well. So I think it really depends on the woman. But I do think housewives are some of the most honorable people out there because what they do is so important for our future.
Well, this is the thing that really does bother me about feminism. A lot of guys are upset by what feminists say about men. But I don't really like feminists, so I don't care what they say about me. I mean, it just doesn't bother me. What does bother me is that they seem to me to be against feminine values, the things that women value. As I've hung out with plenty of women, and they don't value the same things that men value. They have a different hierarchy, of values. That seems to me to be a good thing. It seems to me a good thing that there should be two kinds of people in the world, one with one hierarchy of values and one with another. Do you feel, as a woman, under attack by feminists?
Yeah, I do. And I think that there's some different aspects where women or feminists put women into boxes and don't let them come out of it in some aspects. And I think one of it is, first, the right to have a firearm, especially to be able to protect yourself on campus.
Yeah.
So that's something that feminists are like, women don't need that. We don't need firearms. Well, you're putting me in a box. I thought we're equal to men, so why can I not defend myself? I need an equalizer. I'm not strong as men. And if something does happen on campus, like they say 1 in 4, which it's not 1 in 4. That's insane. That's more dangerous than most parts of conflict-torn regions in the Middle East or Africa. But if that's true, then why doesn't my campus even allow pepper spray? We're not allowed to have pepper spray, even though it's legal in my state. No pepper spray at all, and no firearms. That's out of the question. Don't even talk about firearms. So I think that there's different aspects where feminists put us in boxes. And if you really want to be equal to men, then get an equalizer and take care of yourself.
Why? What's the logic of that? Why aren't you allowed to have a gun? I mean, then don't you have to then call a big manly cop to protect you? I mean, shouldn't? I mean, it does seem to me that one of the best uses of guns is for women's protection.
Well, my campus police weren't even armed. They only had batons. They didn't even have tasers. No tasers, no guns, and they're my campus police. So if something happens, I'm supposed to go and find a blue light, press the blue light, and wait 10 minutes for a police officer to show up who's unarmed? Are you kidding me? So I think that we should be able to protect ourselves. And from a really young age, I learned how to shoot a firearm with my grandfather, and I think I'd feel a lot more safe having one.
So you worked at a daycare center.
Yes.
Obviously, you're taking care of both boys and girls. One of the things I noticed, I mean, I had a boy and a girl and was a parent with people who had boys and girls. One of the things I always noticed is that if you gave a little girl, I'm talking about little kids, you gave her a book and you walked away, you came back and she was reading the book. If you gave a boy a book, you walked away and you came back and he had leapt out the window, killing himself and everyone on the street below. Did you find, in dealing with little boys and little girls, and you were dealing with really little kids, as you say, there's a difference, right?
Yeah, so I had infants all the way to age 13, so I've seen the child development across the entire spectrum. But yes, there's absolutely a difference. Our troublemakers were typically boys. We never really had girls that were troublemakers unless they had some really big problems at home. We had a lot of homeless children as well. So I got to see a lot of different development issues with those children. So yeah, you can definitely see the different toys they play with. Even though when I was a kid, I really loved playing with Hot Wheels.
People are different, yeah. Sure.
Yeah, so they can be different. But I think that when you see all these feminists saying, well, let's give our little boys dolls because we want them to be gender fluid. Well, let them play with what they want to play with. I have no problem with a boy picking out a doll and playing with the doll, but to force it on your children because you think your 2-year-old might not be a female or a male, but they're gender fluid, is kind of ridiculous to me.
So here's my last question. And by the way, I want to thank you for elevating this the Monday cultural segment above its usual level. Here you are. You're working at the Daily Wire. A little bit of a boys' club here, I think. It's like, yeah, she left.
I'm Alicia.
So what would you say to the guys around you who are men of goodwill? Like I said, all I want is, what's it to me? I want you to I want you to be a happy person. So what would you say to them if you wanted to get them to know like one thing that maybe guys do that they shouldn't do or don't think about? What is it that you would have them do?
Oh man, well I think a lot of things that guys have issues with, especially in the internet, because I think men don't know how to interact with women anymore. That's partly because the feminists are saying you can't do certain things, and also because men are too lazy to go up and talk to a woman, so they kind of go in and slide in your DMs and stuff. I think guys have a lot of social awkwardness that they really need to work out. They need to have more confidence when talking to women, but not be too overbearing where it kind of creeps me out.
Yeah.
So I think that's one thing they need to work on, is how to talk to women.
I have noticed, by the way, that younger men who grew up under feminism are angrier at women than guys my age who always liked the differences between men and women. We always enjoyed those differences, but nobody ever told us that it was bad to do that. Where I feel these guys were told you're not supposed to see the differences, and now they're angry to find out that they were told untrue things.
I think that's absolutely true. I think men are kind of angry because they don't know how they're supposed to act. When you're getting told that masculinity is toxic, then what are you supposed to be? I find in my dating life that there's a lot of guys out there who don't know how to be men. They're very girly. I actually dated a Democrat last summer, which Yahoo News loved to interview me about that. They thought that was hilarious. And it didn't go well because I think that chivalry's dead and it shouldn't be. And I think that men just don't know how to act towards women nowadays, and it's really sad.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Kassy. One piece of advice: don't date Democrats. It's very bad news.
I'll write my own book on it.
All right, Kassy Dillon of the Daily Wire. Thank you very much for coming on, Kassy. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Well, she, we got it. She didn't throw anything at me. It's like, well, she probably will when I walk outside. But